Good morning. This is Dishha Bagchi for ThePrint, and we're back with Lieutenant General H.S. Panag to discuss his column from this week. Timing of MoD's selfie points is alarming. Military must not become a political tool. Welcome back, General. Thank you for being here.
As I always say, Disha, it's a pleasure to discuss my weekly column with you.
So, in this week's column, you look at the Defense Ministry's latest scheme of implementing these new selfie points across their various organizations and departments. So, to begin with, could you explain to us what are these new selfie points and how are they different from the Defense Ministry's routine display of its achievements?
The armed forces in all democracies, or for that matter, in all countries, are probably the most popular institution because they defend the country and they sacrifice their lives in the line of duty. So they enjoy public adulation and public what should I say, public puts them on a pedestal everywhere in all the countries. So there is a tendency on part of all governments to themselves identify with the armed forces, so that they also are able to exploit the people's sentiments, with respect to their love for the armed forces. Now, all armed forces and all departments of concerned with defense production, research, development, in fact, all organs working under the Ministry of Defense, they do showcase their prowess to inspire confidence in the public. Now, this is normally done through, in form of museums, parades, equipment displays, which are held all over the country, air shows, fleet reviews, where the entire fleet of the nation passes, from one point, large billboards, photographs, posters. All this is done to inspire confidence in the public. Now, the selfie point is a recent idea. It's there in all over the world and on various social media platforms. Everybody likes to take a selfie to identify him or herself with what is there in the picture. So this time, the government has come out with a novel scheme that let's rather than doing routine displays of military photographs and defense production photographs, let's create selfie points so that people can identify with what the armed forces are doing. So to this end, the Ministry of Defense gave instructions on 6th of October to create 822 geotagged selfie points. Normally, this was a routine exercise. There were standing orders, and all organs of the Ministry of Defense kept doing, this job of publicity based on their own sort of departmental policies. But this time, it's a massive exercise in the sense that 822, selfie points, which may include photographs, it may include 3D models, and so on. And these will be geotagged, and plus they will also be given an identity in form of WhatsApp, X, and Instagram, etc. And also the email ID of the organization and WhatsApp ID of the organization will be printed there, so that when people take their selfie, then they can post it on the social media platforms. And they can also give a feedback to the department concerned, who can again put it onto social media for greater publicity. To this end, as I said, on 6th October, the orders were given. They were to be immediately implemented. In fact, feedback was required to be given by 11th of October, a rather unrealistic order in the sense that it's not possible to create all this in 5-6 days' time. But probably earlier preliminary instructions may have been issued earlier, and people they were preparing. And in fact, one such selfie point, which I have given an example of the command hospital, Southern Command, has already come up on and been posted on social media. Now, SOP has also been worked out by the Public Relations Department of the Ministry of Defense, and which lays down that these will be in public places, at prominent places, and they've also given them samples of what can be, in the included, how they must be made, and also the suggested themes for the scheme. Last but not the least, they also lay down that a picture of the Prime Minister may be included. May be included. The rider is may. And so it's a major exercise, and Selfie Point is certainly a novel idea, and to showcase the prowess of the armed forces and our indigenization of defense production, and so on and so forth, and all the good work done. In fact, the MoD letter says that the intent is to showcase the 9 years, that is what the present government has been in power, the NDA government, for 9 years, two successive terms, to showcase all its achievements. And therein lies a small issue, in the sense that, take the case of Indian Navy ship Vikrant. No, its foundation, or the keel, was laid in 2009. It was set afloat in 2013. Yes, indeed, that it was finally commissioned in 2022, and yet its aircraft are still to arrive. So it was an ongoing thing, but to now include it purely as part of last 9 years' achievement, makes it a little controversial. But nonetheless, the scheme is novel, and the intent is noble on the face of it.
Right. So you mentioned a couple of things. Firstly, the kind of examples they had given to the ministry on what sort of content, themes to cover within these selfie points. Also, the fact that they were expected to be set up within a span of 5 days. So there was a sense of urgency, as well as the timing of this scheme being so close to the upcoming elections. So, what do you think the content, timing, and urgency of the setting up of these selfie points? What do you think it signifies?
See, definitely timing, and the urgency, and the content. All three are, are controversial, and there seems to be a hidden political agenda of the government. Elections in 5 states are due in the month of November, and so you can imagine the urgency that was there, that orders are given on 6th of October, and by 11th of October, a feedback was expected. That means that it was expected by the Ministry of Defense, and thereby the government, that this scheme must be there for people to associate with in the time the elections are on, at least in these 5 states. Probably not mentioned out here that in these 5 states, the scheme itself, which may be a hidden intent, may receive greater priority, so that this whole thing gets showcased. So one is the timing, and then second is the urgency. Now the third issue is that the Prime Minister's photograph, while the SOP laid down by the Department of Public Relations says that it may be included, but in military parlance, words like may, consider, recommend are always interpreted as orders, which are to be obeyed. And so, as I can visualize, that the likelihood of the Prime Minister's photograph being there in every selfie point is very high. In fact, the first selfie point, which was put up on social media, of Command Hospital, Southern Command, which is located in Pune, shows the building of the Command Hospital. It shows the directional arrows to the various departments, like surgery, medical, and so on and so forth. And in the center, it is I love, with the heart sign, Command Hospital, Southern Command is written there. And then there's a photograph of the Prime Minister, which is larger than the rest of the, rest of the elements in the in the photograph. So this is one example which has already come up in public domain. So in my view, since the word may has been included, it will be followed in letter and spirit. Spirit is these, or this will be included. And so overall, the timing, the urgency, and the content, and particularly the 9 years part of it, and the Prime Minister's photograph, it it smacks of a political agenda that prior to elections to the states and also the impending elections to the parliament, which are due to begin in the month of April. Uh, Advantage can be taken off of this scheme, wherein the public identifies with the armed forces and defense as a whole, and the government identifies with the armed forces. So the distinction between the government's executive control over the armed forces and its political its political policies, it gets blurred.
Right. So you mentioned the controversial nature of the content, timing, and urgency, but uh, even in our previous conversations, we've spoken about how there has been a trend within the Indian Army of implementing government recommendations without any sort of questioning. So, what do you think will be the long-term impact of such political influencing within the armed forces?
See, I think we'll give a comprehensive. I'll give a comprehensive answer to this whole thing. I've already mentioned that the armed forces enjoy immense respect and adulation of the public. The government exploits the army by identifying with it to take advantage of public sentiments. Um, and so executive orders, under the constitution, and the distinction between them and the politics of the government gets blurred. But the armed forces take an oath of allegiance to the constitution. Now, as per the constitution, the armed forces are supposed to safeguard the country from internal and external uh, threats, and also aid it in natural calamities. And these are all well laid out in the constitution. Of course, the government is well within its rights to frame all of the policies and oversee all of the policies which are in-house, evolved by the armed forces, but they have to be within this, that that there is the constitutional role, and it should not be mixed up with the political sort of ideology or the political policies of the government. If you recall, I mentioned earlier, while talking about General Milley, how he was able to what should I say, deal with a volatile president who was flouting the constitutional norms of the United States, President Trump. When in the very first interview, he tells him that, Mr. President, I am there to obey your orders. I'll always support them so long as they are lawful. So that means the orders have to be lawful and under the Constitution. They can't be against the Constitution. Now, the rank and file. When you say rank and file, these are the soldiers, junior officers, soldiers. They are trained. They are, conditioned for unquestioned obedience of orders, military orders. And in fact, in that I quoted that the famous poem, "The Charge of the Light Brigade," written by Britain's then poet laureate, Lord Tennyson, that there's not to reason why, there's but to do and die. That means the rank and file doesn't question orders. It gives unquestioned and obedience to the orders, even if they are wrong. That's what happened in the charge of the Light Brigade. But officers of the rank of colonel and above uh, are expected to understand the meaning of the term lawful command under the Constitution, and also they are supposed to understand the difference between the executive orders and any political sort of intent of the government, which plays on which interferes with this existing prevailing norms. I had mentioned in one of my previous things that once when the defense minister of Australia was along with the three service chiefs was at an event, and he was addressing a public event, and so at some stage he started talking of politics. The senior most uh, officer out of the three service chiefs, he came forward, just touched him on the shoulder, and said audibly that since you are discussing now in the political realm, we would like to, move away from here. And they moved away. And I also mentioned to you in my previous column and one of the interviews also that even when General Mark Milley was duped into going for a photo op after the Black Lives Matter protests had, vandalized the church. Moment he realized that he has been sucked into a political event, he disassociated and went away from there. So thereby, what I'm trying to say is that the Chief of Defense Staff, the three army chiefs, and even to the extent of army commanders who actually deal with the government, they have got no excuse not to understand what is lawful command and what is lawful under the Constitution, and where the political authority is transgressing into this sort of sacrosanct norm. So now, why sort of I think there. I mean, I'll just give you an example. A handle on the X, and seems to be a veteran. So when this photograph came of Headquarters Southern Command, with the Prime Minister's oversized picture in it, he said, when military leaders cannot or refuse to distinguish between executive orders and political gimmickry. So I think that quite summed it up. Two retired chiefs of one chief of army staff, General Ved Malik, and then the chief of naval staff. Both of them are very seasoned veterans. Chief of naval staff, General Admiral Arun Prakash. Both of them very seasoned veterans. They were scathing in their comments. In fact, I had mentioned earlier that just after Kargil, when the posters of the Bharatiya Janata Party's association with the military came up somewhere in one of the elections, the Prime Minister, through the National Security Advisor, Mr. Brajesh Mishra, sorry, not the Prime Minister, the Chief of Army Staff, through the National Security Advisor, Mr. Brajesh Mishra, conveyed it to Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee that this is not done. And then those posters were subsequently removed. Now, why does this happen? That's the question you have asked me. Is one could be lack of understanding. Now, this is while I had mentioned before that Constitution as a subject is not studied within the armed forces, and this delicate relationship between the military and the government and the Constitution, the trio, how it works, is also not much debated. So there is a gray area. But having said that, it is expected that the three chiefs who have got about 40 years of service behind them, and they are exceptionally well read, done courses abroad and everywhere, they do understand this nuance of the trilateral relationship, and so it is hard to believe that, but there is a gray area as far as the Indian Army is concerned. Second is just a weak spine. And that, of course, is lack of moral courage, weakness of character. that they just do not want to take up a stand in front of the government, which is the executive authority over the armed forces under the constitution, of course. So that's another reason. And I again will, I mean, these weaknesses are there. It's all relative. Well, it's all expected that the chief of army staff, the chief of defense staff are the numero unos, and they have to have all these. But these are all relative. That's why we have had in the past good prime ministers, bad prime ministers, good presidents, bad presidents, good chiefs, not so good chiefs. Okay, so there is a level, but at that level also there is a distinction between a degree. There's a small degree of this thinking, how much sort of weaknesses or they have or don't have. The third reason is that the personal advantage. That at this stage of service, I mean, let me mention to you that you be the chief of defense staff or you be the chief of army staff. In India, the moment you retire, you are just a nobody. I mean, you get a pension of 2,25,000, and that's about the income of any middle-level executive, per month. I mean, that's middle-level executive in India. So they do look forward to certain constitutional appointments after retiring as governors, as ambassadors, and so on. In the United States, it's very different. In the United States, because their army is highly respected, because these generals are highly experienced, they generally easily step into the corporate world. In fact, their lectures are at a premium, and they can charge large sums of money. So this allows them. That's why they don't really seek second office. A lot of them are given there by also to make use of their talent. Our government doesn't make use of them. They don't appoint them, by as a special this thing to create sort of special rule to create, say, assistant defense minister or defense minister being an ex-retired general. It's not done. In fact, there's the retired chief of army staff who is with the Bharatiya Janata Party. He works as a junior minister, and this is his second term. And in the previous elections, he was elected by the highest margin ever in the country. So, there is a this thing for seeking, some benefit from the government. It's another reason why they should come to this. And the fourth possible reason is that political ideology wise, the military hierarchy has identified with the government. Now, this is the worst case. Now, this is what happened. What happened in Pakistan? Then you become a player, and it ultimately leads to military rule. This is an unlikely scenario for India. I don't think anyone in the armed forces is. Even if he does vote for this party or that party, and he has a political inclination, but it's not supposed to be displayed. So I don't think anybody really does it. So probably it's the other weaknesses, lack of understanding of the subject, weak spine, which is related to character, and probably hoping for a personal advantage. Now, be that as it may, the fact is that our hierarchy has allowed itself to be exploited in recent times. There has been large-scale spectacles with the political undertones, be it for COVID, be it at the opening of a highway with a landing strip, which is a common feature anywhere. But a full-fledged air show was held, a few years back in one of the states, So similarly, this selfie point again is a case in point. I'll sum it up by quoting what I have written in the last paragraph, that governments come and go. Come end of May next year, there may be a different government in power. Are these selfie points going to come down in one go because they have got picture of the prime minister? Or are we going to put up the picture of the next prime minister and to continue with the happy trend of mixing politics and the constitutional responsibilities? It's hard to imagine such a scenario. So governments come and go, but a political military constitutional conduct remains a constant, should remain a constant. Now, if this is a constant, no matter which government comes, which government goes, nothing will change. Now, because the bureaucracy had become, had started having political inclinations, that is why any new government that comes, the first thing that does is change its political, in a state, they'll change the, secretary of the chief secretary, they'll change the police chief, and at the center, all appointments are, sooner or later changed to put officers that they like in position. They say, well, we are putting them because we have worked with them before, but there is a political undertone in this. But it doesn't happen with the generals so far. Now,
Right.
if we violate these norms, well, I think the same will happen to the generals as well. So they may
Right.
be, their services may be terminated, they may be changed, and these sort of kind of things can happen if they start compromising with all this. And all it needs on part of the military hierarchy is a straight spine. That means strength of character, moral courage, that again part of character, and polite but firm advice. It never fails. I gave you the example of General Mark Milley. Not once did he confront the president directly. Not once did he fail to carry out any of his orders. But in his public pronouncements, in his talk to the military, etc., he very clearly conveyed. In private, he must have conveyed, as I mentioned in that discussing that column, and in publicly he conveyed it that the military takes an oath on the constitution, not to an individual, not to a dictator, and so on and so forth, very emphatically. So all it needs is a straight spine and polite but firm advice to the government. And the military will not have to face such embarrassments.
Right. Well, thank you, General. I think you brought up some very interesting insights, and firstly, into what are these selfie points, as well as discussing the nuanced relationship between the constitution, the government, and the armed forces, and the need to bring bring about the apolitical constitutional conduct rather than kind of implementing these politically influential and controversial schemes. So, for viewers interested in reading the full article by General Panag, the link to it will be in our description. Thank you, and we will see you next week.